Intravenous nivolumab is approved for 22 different indications, and it is currently used once every 4 weeks intravenously. But FDA approved nivolumab for kidney cancer in 2015 based on CheckMate 025 on every 2-week schedule, because that's how it was tested, and that was 3 milligram per kilogram body weight schedule. And then later it became 240 flat dose every 2 weeks. And then later it became 480 flat dose every 2 weeks intravenously. But now the reason for testing subcutaneous administration is because of the convenience and potential to reduce the treatment burden on patients and the healthcare systems. Because, subcutaneous administration is faster. It doesn't require IV access. It doesn't require port. Doesn't come with the complications like port infection and things like that, extravasation. So there are a lot of advantages to subcutaneous administration, and generally speaking, it's preferred by patients. That's the reason why this was Nivo subQ formulation was developed. And the results showed that co-primary endpoints for non-inferiority were met. The C average day 28 and C minimum steady state. The 95%, the lower bound of 95% of confidence interval, both of them were above 0.8, making it a positive study. And likewise, the key powered secondary endpoint of objective response rate from sub-Q was 24.2%, and from IV was 18.2%. And thus, this also making the non-inferiority threshold to make it a positive study. And there were other secondary endpoints. The median time to response was 3.7 months in both arms. And median progression-free survival was 7.23 months in the sub-Q arm, and 5.65 months in the IV arm. Basically, there was no much difference between the progression-free survival, meaning both were very similar to each other. And immunogenicity was another interesting finding that we found in the sub-Q arm with a higher ADA or anti-drug antibody positivity, 22.8% in the sub-Q arm and 7% in the IV arm. But that did not have any impact on the PK efficacy or safety when we did further analyses. And other safety data showed that there were local site reactions in the sub-Q arms, but all of them were transient and they resolved without treatments. And the adverse event profile of sub-Q was very similar to that of IV nivolumab. So basically, safety was very similar as well. And most importantly, the median administration time for the sub-Q Nivo was less than 5 minutes, and that of the IV Nivo was 30 minutes median. So the tremendously shorter duration of administration for sub-Q compared to IV. Adverse event management has to continue similar to what we do for IV. Sub-Q and IV, the same compound. It's the same compound. They have similar side effect. They have same, the side effect profile is very similar between the two arms, and there is no way around it, because the goal of nivolumab treatment is, activating T cells, which may work against the cancer, and that's what we want. And when they work when they act against the normal tissue, that's when, the patients develop toxicity. So the monitoring has to continue. There's no way around it. Subcutaneously administered or intravenously administered, it's the same compound. The advantage of subcutaneously administered treatment over IV treatment is that it does not require an infusion center. So if you have every week, if you have 10 or 12 nivolumab infusions, and if you can do all those subcutaneously in the clinic, opposed to sending them to infusion center, which may be another location, that makes it easy on the patient. Number one. Number two, we don't need to book infusion chairs. Number three, there's no wait time associated with another appointment. Patients' lives are made so easier, and they don't need, additionally, as I mentioned earlier, they don't need intravenous access. They don't need port placement. They don't have the complication of extravasation of intravenously administered drug, etc. All those things are, negated by the use of this. So I think it will be very attractive for community oncology practices to use, subcutaneously administered nivolumab because of all those reasons. So let me give you the example of our center. We cannot book anybody for a chemo chair or immunotherapy chair within a week. Sometimes its wait time is 2 weeks because of the sheer volume and number of chairs or something. We have 45 or so chairs here, and we do 140 to 160 infusions every day. But that being said, we have a wait time of 1 to 2 weeks because of the sheer volume, and also the paperwork involved, etc., with prior authorization and all those things. So there are a lot of factors which delays patient getting to the treatment in the first place. So if we can alleviate, at least reduce the volume in the infusion center by transferring all the nivolumabs into outpatient clinics instead of infusion center, that may free up a lot of chairs. So I did the math here with the help of our infusion staff, infusion team here. So we use close to 2,000 doses of nivolumab a year. And that's both in combination and single agent. And we use nearly 900 doses of nivolumab, single agent nivolumab every year for various cancers. And if we transfer only at least those single agent nivolumabs to subcutaneously administered nivolumab, that will free up nearly 20 hours of chair time every week. That's 2.5 chairs free, meaning patients could use open up the infusion center could use the open chairs and treat patients faster. That's one advantage. So that's how the efficiency will be improved. If we can decompress the busy infusion centers and treat whoever that can be treated in the clinic with the sub-Q injection, which takes only 5 minutes, and that's easier. And okay, another advantage is actually, paperwork burden. So when I discharge a patient from my clinic and say, yeah, I'll see you in 4 weeks, your next infusion will be 4 weeks later. So you have to make the appointment for the visit with me, lab work, and the infusion, right? So the checkout team will have to make all those 3 appointments for the patient, right? So if we are going to do the nivolumab subcutaneous administration in the clinic, they don't need to make a separate appointment. That's already reducing the paperwork burden. So administrative, workload is reduced. The overall volume will be reduced from the infusion center and free up more chairs, and thus helping other patients to get to treatment faster.